panel. Why we're here, we've got super experience on the panel. So if you have a question throughout the entire session, feel free to throw that question out there at any time. We'll be happy to answer that. Well, we're going to start off with a poll. It will help us know a little bit more about all of you. And the first poll is, what is the primary social media platform that you use in your business? So Antoine, if you'll throw that up on the screen, you guys can start answering that. If there is a social media platform that is not on that list, you can throw that right in the chat box. Go ahead and click the little bullets there on that poll. While you guys are doing that, I'm going to go around and I'm going to ask our panelists. Benjamin, what is your favorite, not the one you use, what's your favorite social media platform?
Yeah, mine's pretty cut and dry. YouTube is my favorite, and I'll give you the reason for that is because I really think that as consumers are moving away from television, I really think YouTube is becoming the new television now, and people are going there to consume their favorite series and music videos, and I really feel like once you create a video, it could grow exponentially over time. So YouTube is our favorite.
Oh, that's good. Some of the poll results are showing up here. 2% say that YouTube is. So we need to talk a little bit more with our audience and share how YouTube can be so valuable. Katie, what's your favorite?
My favorite is Instagram. It's 80% of where my business comes from. I love the fact that we're seeing photos, and I know Facebook is still, dominating the social media world, but I feel like over on Instagram, I'm seeing like less of my crazy uncle and more fun videos and pictures.
Outstanding. Laura.
I'd have to say, since I work a lot with B2B, it's got to be LinkedIn. People are there to network. And, if you do it right, you can make some really phenomenal contacts. We're all here because of LinkedIn.
That's right. Good. That's a very important note. Antoine found all of us through LinkedIn. All right, Antoine, can you put the results back up on the screen that went away? Love to be able to see that one more time. So quickly, you guys can see Facebook is still very important, 32%, but absolutely tied. Katie, you got to like that with Instagram. LinkedIn is, look at that, 29%, Laura. It's right there. And then you've got a trickling down. The reason that each of you are using different platforms is because hopefully that's where your audience is, and that is a great great tactic, strategy to keep in mind. All right, so I'm going to go. First question for our panel is: what factors should be considered when selecting the right social media platform for your business? What factors should you consider? Laura, we'll start with you.
I love that question because we have to start where our market is, first of all, and what are the psychographics and the demographics? What do they care about on social media? What do they engage with? What do they love to consume? When you should know these things about your audience so that you can know which network they're participating on, and then what to put out there for them, right? So know where they are and what they're putting out there.
Outstanding. Benjamin.
Yeah, I think for me, it's always going to come back to working with somebody. I'm always going to look at what their business goals are to start. So, are you trying to get brand awareness? Are you trying to get leads? Are you trying to drive purchases? I think that's where you want to start. From there, once you know what your business goals that you're trying to get out of social media, to your point that everyone's kind of already mentioned in the intro there, it's figuring out where is your audience actually spending their time. I think a lot of people feel like they need to be on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn. Really, you should just start with one or two networks and own it. And then as you're kind of getting momentum on a specific channel, then you can start kind of expanding to other channels. So I'd start with business goals and where your audience is located.
Outstanding. Katie, what about you?
So we've all created this kind of customer avatar of who we're trying to talk to. I like to think of it like this. When you pick up your phone first thing in the morning, what is that platform that they're logging onto? Is it Twitter? Is it Facebook? Is it Instagram? For me, it's Instagram. I will say mixing a little of TikTok in there these days. And so just thinking about how people are picking up their phone and which app they're opening the most.
So Katie, if you're spending more time on TikTok, and you're seeing that happen more and more often. What is a best practice that we can share on a business getting on TikTok and finding engagement and finding ROI?
So this is huge right now because businesses have been kind of slow to the party, while in the last year, TikTok has completely exploded. It's like 15 seconds or 60 of just fun. You see people singing and dancing. So if you're a business and you're not on there, and it makes sense in terms of who you're thinking about with your customer avatar. I'll give you one example. We have a client who owns a makeup kit. She created it. We posted a very simple video of the makeup kit opening. In 24 hours, it had 10,000 views. She had over 200 purchases from her on her website, all traffic from TikTok. So it really is something we can't count out.
That is terrific. And thank you for that example. That really does solidify how you can leverage that. So, all right, great. We've got our platforms. We know where we're going. We feel like we have our audience. And if anyone has a question more about audience development and understanding where they are, be happy to talk about that. I'm going to take the next step, who is great. We know we're there. How do we increase engagement, right? How do we get people to engage with our content? Katie, I'm going to come to you first because you figured this out on TikTok. You came up with content. What was it that you did to make sure the engagement was strong?
So one thing is video, right? So people want to see things in motion. If you're a business owner, consider getting in front of the camera. That's really going to engage your audience in a new way. I also think I say this: to get love, you got to give love. So if you're just going on any of these platforms and you're just watching and you're not actually liking and commenting, you can't expect that people are going to do the same thing for you and your business. So make sure you're engaging so you can get that engagement back.
I love the branding. Well done. Working that into your comments is fantastic. Laura, what about you? What is the best way to increase engagement on LinkedIn, since that is your primary space? And you can go outside of LinkedIn, but LinkedIn is an interesting spot because a lot of people just paging right through their feed. And you're still muted.
Thank you. So there's so many things you can do on LinkedIn, but I would start with searching for people who you want to have conversations with and direct messaging them, requesting first. That's on LinkedIn. It's called a connection request before you can actually talk to them. But reach out with, a compliment or something of interest, a question for them, and don't be weird, and connect with them. Don't be salesy, but like, hey, I'd love to connect with you. You seem interesting. That's kind of low level lame. So kick it up a notch. Why do you want to connect with them? Like, what about their profile seemed interesting to you? If they're a potential client, I think we have some things in common. I'd like to learn more about you and see if we can collaborate, or potentially I can help you. So do something pretty specific and engage with them. And then if you have existing connections that you're already message, go ahead and message them. A really great way to do it is if you're scanning the home feed, or you search for a particular topic and you see someone commenting, they have a question, they're talking about something that you can help them with, message them. Hey, I saw you talking about this. I wanted to know if you wanted to hop on a quick call. So it's going to be very organic on LinkedIn. That's one way to engage them organically. And of course, for credibility, you need to put up good content. Like show you're a thought leader and have testimonials or recommendations there.
All right. I'm going to tell you, folks, what Laura just said is huge. One of the things that you can do is you could follow a thought leader. You can follow some of those people that always gets tons of engagement on every single one of their posts. And you can pop in there like Gary Vee, right? You could watch every single one of his posts, and someone in that feed is going to ask a question that is not going to be answered. Look for those opportunities, grab it, and respond to that person. Hey, here's a suggestion that I would suggest you try, blah, 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 blah. And chances are you may end up with a client. It is a great method. And I tell you, Laura, that's great tips. Again, I'm a LinkedIn guy, so I absolutely understand where you're coming from, but that's good stuff right there. Thank you so much. All right, Ben, how are we going to grow? Now, this is really interesting. You said YouTube is a social media site. What I love about that is a lot of people say, huh, how is that? So I'd love for you to say, how is it that YouTube is considered social media? Because it is. And then how do you grow engagement on YouTube?
Yeah, great question. So oddly enough, it's always not a shocker to me that a lot of people aren't spending time on YouTube. I think everyone knows LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. They're very comfortable with it. They're using it daily. People think of YouTube as this really hard thing to do, right? I got to make a video. I got to be in front of a camera. I don't even know what videos to make. I don't have professional video equipment. Actually, I found a lot of brands today are doing a lot of live streaming. Funny enough, we're literally in a live stream right now and we're in a Zoom call. You can actually distribute any Zoom call for free to Facebook and YouTube. So that would be my first pro tip for you. If you're worried about actually having professional video equipment, you actually don't. All you need is a webcam and a computer and a Zoom. That's all free if you have a computer, right? So, I mean, that could get you started. As far as your question around engagement, I think it's thinking of YouTube as, yes, a social media, but really it is the #2 search engine in the world. So think of YouTube as the largest video platform in the world. And every day people are going to YouTube to find solutions or learning how to do things, right? Actually, the two top categories on YouTube today are how-to tutorials and product demonstration videos. So if you can kind of frame your video content around those types of topics, you'll actually have videos that will be very engaging because people will be searching for those.
That is brilliant. Explain this. How is YouTube social? How can you be social on YouTube?
Yeah, so no different than what Laura and Katie are kind of mentioning with their different channels that they mentioned, right? If I am maybe making a video, another good idea is to maybe find all of the other creators on YouTube that have made a similar video, reach out to them, engage with their content, like their videos. Funny enough, also YouTube is going to rank your videos based on the titles, descriptions, and tags that you have them. So it will give you those suggested videos. And so engaging with YouTube videos and leaving comments will kind of flag that person's account or get that notification that we all get on social media of, hey, somebody's commented or liked my video. So that really is just going to increase that engagement. And then you obviously should also look into paid advertising. Paid advertising is kind of the rocket booster to getting that extreme engagement on your YouTube videos.
That is great. So the comments field under YouTube videos, I think, are very interesting, and that is, that to me has been one of those things. I for many years would never engage with a video. I was constantly on there. I'm one of those guys. When I needed something answered on Excel, gosh, how do I delete duplicates? I always forget this. No, don't tell me I'm stupid. I know. I can never remember how to delete duplicates. I always go to YouTube to find out how to remember that. And now I go in and I'll say something to the creator. Hey, this is a great tip. Thanks for sharing it, because it is a great place to engage socially. All right. So there was a comment that was made, and I think this is interesting. Let me see if I can find it. I love it. All you guys are making so many comments. This is fantastic. So the name is Anne Kreitzenberg. Another good post. She's talking about LinkedIn. I try to get in early when other experts in my world post content that I can offer substantive comments or politely controversial questions or provide deliberately not my own other content. So I think this is really interesting that the controversiality of social can be extremely engaging. Let's be honest, right? I can post something very controversial. There was, and Katie, you'll appreciate this. There was one of our clients had an associate who was really doing great, and she was very valuable. She ended up leaving, and her personal social media or her personal Instagram account had blown up. It was huge, and my colleague said, "Take a look. Her account's huge." And I said, "She must be selling SEX on her Instagram page, right?" Because she was not really a name that I'd heard of. And when I got onto it, there was a lot of skin on her channel. So yes, you can do controversial, you can grow your engagement, but Katie, is that a good idea? And you're
Okay.
muted. Oh, there you go. Well
Yeah,
done. I didn't even have to tell you.
I had to take a pause because you're asking me like, does sex sell? I
The
think
answer is yes, for the record. But should you be selling sex?
okay, so we got to go back to the basics about your brand. Is that good for your brand? Okay, let me give you an amazing example about a job application I got where I went on the applicant's Instagram and the first picture is her in a bikini upside down doing a beer, like shotgun beer pouring all over her. So is that a good idea when she's interviewing for a job in social media? I think that we're all like trying to get followers, more likes, but you can't stray so far away from your core values. There are other ways to blow up besides, being scantily clad. That's my hot take on it.
And I think you're absolutely right. Laura, I say this all the time to my LinkedIn clients. On LinkedIn, you don't talk about sex, politics, or religion unless you're in the business of sex, politics, or religion. How do you try to have you had people who have done that, who have kind of expanded in that space? And what do you do with that?
I'm not sure exactly what you're asking, but I totally agree with you. If you're not, and Katie, because if you're not like 100%, if you wouldn't want yourself and your brand to be blasted on like Times Square, don't post it. If you do a gut check, really
Right.
do a gut check. If you are okay with the whole world knowing it, then great. But yeah, if that is your brand, if your brand is to be controversial, I mean, Gary Vee, he's pretty controversial and he does it, he uses swear words and it turns some people off, but he doesn't care, right? Because that's his brand. He's like your rough around the edges kind of social media marketer, gets things done, and not everybody, but there's a big following for that. So follow your values. Like I love what Katie said. And yeah, there's no reason to put on social media stuff that has nothing to do with your brand personally.
And that is an important thing to note. There are, and by the way, you did great with the poorly way I asked that question. So great job. The thing that's I think is interesting here is you've got to know your mission, right? And we've kind of talked about that. What is your mission? You need to write it out. You got to know what your marketing plan is and how does social media complement that. And if controversiality is part of your mission and you think it's going to help you, then go for it. But do it with purpose. Don't make a mistake and step into something that you shouldn't. Don't make a mistake in getting involved in politics, especially today. You're going to turn off half your audience. I mean, let's be honest. You talk about politics, half your audience is going to be angry with you, no matter what you choose, no matter what side you choose. Why go there, again, unless you're in the business of politics? Ben, any thoughts about this before I go to the next question?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say, I manage in a team of social media managers, right? I've got about 15 social media managers underneath me. So what I've told them internally for our company, for any accounts, is I ask themselves, and most of them are younger, like they just got out of college, right? They're starting early in their career. I just go to them, I say, hey, is this something that you would want your professor to see in a classroom? That's the thing that I point to them and I
Oh,
say,
that's good.
if this was appropriate in school, then it's probably okay on social media. But if you were posting something in a classroom and the teacher saw it, and then you were going to get detention or get suspended, then that should be kind of a red flag for you that it's not going to be appropriate. So that's kind of the analogy that I like to use. Is it school appropriate?
Oh, I like that. I like that a lot. All right. Kimberly Navarro has asked a question I think is interesting, and it really is. This is a question that's come up from a couple of my clients today, as a matter of fact. Speaking of controversy, have any of you been asked to look into the alternative social media, such as Gab or Rumble? I've been trying to find out what other social media marketers think about that, since it's still technically social media. And I think the larger question here, so there's two pieces of this. Have you asked to look into that? And what do you guys think? What is the future of social media? Do we lose a Facebook, an Instagram, a LinkedIn that are the larger contenders, YouTube? Are they going to be replaced? And if so, by whom? So number one, Laura, we'll come to you first. Have you been asked to consider other social media sites? And if so, which ones? And what do you think the future looks like?
I wish I had my crystal ball right here for you all.
I'm going to put my investment dollars wherever you tell me.
Right. So, what I know as a marketer is it's not a matter if the market changes, it's a matter of when. So things change all the time. We saw the disappearance of MySpace way back, but we really haven't seen too many others come and go. They've come and grown and got bought and grown. So I don't know what the future is. Regarding other social networks, I haven't gone on. The latest one I've gone on is Clubhouse. That seems to be, people are flocking there. It's an audio only social network. The other ones I am not familiar with. And I have been asked from time to time to go on social networks where certain audiences are, like a real estate audience, that kind of thing. And I think that's very valid if your market is real estate professionals.
Good. Fantastic. Ben, what do you think?
Yeah, so mine.
Excuse me. I did that by mistake. He is Benjamin. I just want to make sure I get that correct. I apologize, Benjamin.
Yeah, no worries. So mine always comes back to data. I'm a data nerd. So a lot of people don't realize, what are the 3 most visited websites in the world? Do you have any idea, Mark?
3 most visited websites
in the world.
I did not study. Well, they got to be social media, I'm guessing. So I would say Facebook, YouTube. Is Google considered a website?
You nailed it, man. Mark, air high five, man. You got it right. You passed the class. Yeah, so that's what I'm going to point to when anybody is kind of, bringing up trends. And yeah, I agree with Laura. I've been seeing all these people talking about Clubhouse. It reminds me of Google Plus a lot, where it's like it's an invite based only. It's the hot guy. TikTok, everyone's talking about it. But I think in the social media space, what gets lost a little bit is everybody focuses on the newness and they don't focus on what's effective, right? So when you think about what's effective, I just told you, the 3 most visited websites in the world today are Google, Facebook, and YouTube. So why would you not focus your attentions on the largest audiences on those networks?
Bravo. That's a great point. I love it. All right, Katie, you want me to repeat the question? You got it.
No, I got it. And I think this kind of goes back to something Benjamin said, where you can't be on every platform. It's not going to serve you or your audience, and you're not going to do every platform well. And immediately when something new comes up like Clubhouse, I get a ton of calls from clients like, should we be on there? And it stresses people out. And I think that we have to go back to the data, back to the numbers, where a large amount of people are. We're business owners. We're busy. So if it's something that you feel like, you can think about the joy too. Like, it's something you're having fun doing. For me, TikTok was really fun. My business pivoted about 6 months ago. We have a TikTok specialist on my team who deals with about 10 to 15 businesses. And so it made sense. And so just ask yourself, does it make sense for your business?
Great. All right. So here we are. We've done all our work. We've got our engagement. How do we best measure the analytics of what we're doing? So I'm really curious. There are lots of ways to do this. There's lots of tools out there. I'd love to tap each of you and see what you think are those best tools to give you those analytics. And we're going to start with Ben first.
Sure. Yeah. So for me,
you know why, Benjamin, I'm going to start with you is because you love the data. So I knew you'd have a home run here.
Yeah, so I've looked at the data long enough to know, like, it's the same data that business owners really care about for our services. It really comes down to a business owner. How many leads am I getting? What's my revenue or sales? How many fans am I growing by? What's my website traffic? And what's my engagement? I really just focus on those 5 major metrics, because those, from a marketing perspective, I can speak to a business owner and say, hey, based upon these 5 metrics, I can actually come back to you and tell you what's the return on investment for everything you're doing for social media. So there's tons of different metrics. And the crazier thing on that too, right, is each platform has hearts and likes and comments. So they're all different. But what I try to do is kind of group those into those 5 to 6 main metrics.
All right. So in the chat box, Judy Bodette asked, repeat those, Benjamin. Mm-hmm. So give us those 5 metrics one more time.
Website traffic, leads, sales or revenue, fans, and engagement. And engagement is including comments, likes, all of those different weird metrics that you have based on the channel.
Perfect. All right. Is there a software or a website that we can point people to that can help pull those metrics in a consolidated way, or not? And I'm actually curious myself because I always struggle with this.
Yeah, so if you're asking me again, I would just say there's tons of third-party analytics tools. And, I think Hootsuite is probably the one that most people know because it is the largest social media management tool. Now, they're not exactly focused on analytics, but they do provide that. Actually, for all of our clients, we do all of our analytics reporting through the native platforms. And why is that? Is because if you're using a third-party analytics tool, it's not going to have the same data most of the time as compared to the native platform. And also, put it this way, doesn't it logically make sense that the networks want to keep you on the platform and have you look at the data on the platform versus leaving the platform, going on a tool, and now that tool is constantly trying to get connected to that API and update every year. And it's like, I think that's the way I look at it, is go get the data from the native platforms themselves if you can.
Yeah, bravo. Great point. Katie, what are your thoughts about this?
It's a great question because I get asked a lot, like, how do we measure ROI? And one thing I will say is that followers, like one follower does not equal $1 in your bank account. And while it seems like this vanity metric and everyone wants a ton of followers and a ton of likes, going back to what Benjamin is saying, that web traffic, that's what's most important. If you're selling a product or a service, we want to push people there. Now, the other thing that's kind of like not measurable is brand awareness, and all these platforms allow people to learn about you and what you offer, and that's really difficult to measure. My company uses a software called later.com. It's pretty easy to get analytics, but we also natively look at Facebook insights are really in depth and great. Same for Instagram, TikTok as well. We also use Pinterest quite a bit. And all of these platforms have great analytics behind them. So you don't have to spend more. It's all right there for you.
That's great. Thank you so much. Laura, I think LinkedIn is interesting, and somebody made a comment here. Mark Kaminzend, I hope I said your name there correctly, Mark, commented that LinkedIn does provide analytics, but do they for individual profiles?
They do to some degree, especially if you have a paid account. So you have to pay to get some of those analytics, like who viewed your profile, have you noticed? And then you go in there. If you don't have a paid, it says, oh, if you want to see who else did it, then you have to. But they do send personal profiles reports. Like every week I get a report. Your profile has been seen by 564 people this week, alone, or in the last 24 hours, or whatever it is. And that's really good to know how visible are you getting yourself to be, and then adjust accordingly. Especially if you had a post that did really well, the analytics are really important to know what to do again, what to repeat, or not necessarily duplicate, but do similar, and see if you can even up the game from there. So I love this analytics question. About it. Our team uses Agora Pulse, and we get the analytics from there, as well as I've had clients who've had their own dashboards like Sife, which brings in the Google Analytics and the social media. And like Benjamin said, it's not always accurate. So you have to know. So we think the most accurate is what's on the platforms.
Absolutely. Laura, you said what your team uses, but I couldn't understand that. What do you guys use?
It's called Agora Pulse.
Agora Pulse, absolutely.
Agora, like
Agora with a G.
Agora, Agora Pulse.
So very good. Great stuff there. We're going to move on. Before we go on we're going to get a little bit into advertising. Anything that I should have asked? Any of you that we should hit before we move on? Anything pending? No? All right. Great. Let's do this. So, Antoine, let's go into that next poll. The next poll is, have you advertised on social media? So we're looking to get a sense of how many of you are actively doing this, because it'll tell us where we go with our responses here. If a lot of you have not advertised on social, then that will certainly give us a good signpost. And if you have, we'll end up pushing that game up. So we are curious about this. So have you advertised? Yes, hit that button. No, easy enough. Or you thought about it, but you haven't done it, right? I know a lot of people, I've not thought about advertising on social media. Should. And while we're waiting for those responses to come in, Benjamin, you said something I think is really interesting. When you look at those metrics, and everyone out there, you should think about this. If you're not getting money, if you're not getting an ROI on your social media, on the work you're doing on your social media, something's wrong. So you've got to change something. If you're not getting the leads, if you're not getting a response, you need to look at changing the tactics that you're applying and potentially your strategy altogether if you're not getting leads. All right. Antoine, are we getting close here? When do we close that out? All right. I think you're coming. Here we go. Have you advertised? So this is good. We got a lot of people that have done this. So 56% of you have advertised on social. We have 26% of you have not. And 18% of you are in that camp that you've thought about it, but haven't pulled the trigger. All right. That's great information. Okay, folks, here's what we're going to do. We're going to answer this question. Is advertising on social media a good idea? Is it a good idea? Why or why not? I've gone to Benjamin first. Katie, I haven't gone to you first. Let's go to you. And I'm curious about advertising on Instagram. Are you driving that through Facebook? How do you do that? Go for that.
Yeah. So one of the biggest traps that business owners get into is they see boost to posts, and it's so easy to reach a ton of people, and they're putting $10 here and $20 there. And really they have no strategy behind what they're doing. The Facebook Business Manager platform, it's more complicated, but it is a lot better, and your dollars can go further. I think that it is important, especially if you're a new business starting out, you have a new product. Advertising is really important. I think Facebook has become really a pay to play platform. It's really difficult to get more likes on your Facebook page without advertising. So I think it's something that has to be a part of your strategy. You're able to target people by age, gender, niche, and it's a way to get to people that organic traffic doesn't necessarily hit.
Great. Awesome. So Laura, what are your thoughts on this?
I agree with Katie. I mean, although we're talking about LinkedIn, or Facebook, Facebook Business Manager is great. The LinkedIn platform, if you have bucks to spend, then it's worth it. I've, tried to spend a little money on LinkedIn. It goes nowhere. You have to have a big strategy. You have to know what you're doing. And I agree, Katie, again, they make it so easy just to push that boost button, right? It's so tempting. And there's so little to show for it afterwards, except a decrease in your bank account. So yes, you want to use it if it's the right use case. And Benjamin, I know you're going to talk about YouTube ads, and I think those are probably the best case for a lot of brands. And if you don't have YouTube content, obviously, maybe not, but maybe you can talk to that.
So that's great. And I will tell you, Laura, we had someone who asked, they said they want to hear you talk about LinkedIn ad tips for B2B companies. There's a piece that, and I'd love to get your opinion about this. When someone talks to us about LinkedIn ads, one of the things that we look is what is the lifetime value of a client? And if your lifetime value of a client is low, somewhere around, we've played around with this, $3,000 to $4,000 of lifetime value is about the threshold. Unless I'm selling a lot of widgets, then I that's a whole different thing. But if I'm just looking for somebody to sign up for a webinar and it's $37.50, yeah, advertising on LinkedIn is not a good ROI. Or
no,
you're not
in fact,
get a good ROI.
I agree with you, because it's better to hire an agency or a team to do the one-on-one direct messaging to invite people versus paying for ads. Ads are really for a large 4 to 5 figure ad budget, right? A month. Mm-hmm. When you have that kind, then you have what you said, the product or service that's a high ticket, we can work on a strategy from there.
Outstanding. What type of commitment, and I do want to kind of throw this to all of you, but what type of commitment do you typically ask? What time commitment do you typically encourage? Are you looking for somebody to say, okay, let's do this for a month and see what happens? Or do you say we need to go longer? And if so, how long should a business owner anticipate a valuable campaign taking?
6 months at minimum. We will take clients with 3 months if they insist, but if they're really committed and they know, and we've put together a good strategy, it's going to take a little bit of time to ramp up and then you're going to want to keep it. So we'd like people to make a year-long commitment to their strategy.
Fantastic. Great stuff. All right, Benjamin, how do we advertise? I mean, I'm really kind of curious. How do you advertise on YouTube? I'm kind of curious because I really don't know the answer to that. And how do you make that effective?
Yeah, so there are two types of ads that I've been running on YouTube in the last year that I find the most effective. If you don't know what they are, I'll try to explain them as I can, as best simply. The first type of ads are what called in-stream ads. In-stream ads are those ads that you'll see when you watch a video. You may have noticed sometimes when you actually search YouTube and then you click on a video, as soon as the video starts, it actually doesn't even play the video that you think you're clicking on. All of a sudden an ad pops up in front of you. That's an example of an in-stream ad. It's shown at the beginning of the video. It can be shown in the middle of the video. It can be shown at the end of the video because it's actually happening in the streaming of the video, right? That's example number one. Example number two would be a discovery ad video. Think of that just very similar to Google search, right? When you type into Google at the top, it will actually say, these are the top 3 websites that are going to pop up, and it will say ad. So same thing with YouTube. You may not have noticed that, but when you type something into YouTube, you're going to get discovery ads that are going to be at the very top before you see any of the YouTube videos that are actually going to return results. So I've actually found that those two types of ads are the best performing for us. And I would say the 2 different ways to kind of look at those ads, if you're trying to promote a video, then I would probably recommend a discovery ad, right? Because people are trying to discover your video. You're trying to promote that based upon the keywords. Now, if you're trying to generate leads or sales, it might make more sense to do in-stream. Again, I'm going to make that analogy to television of, hey, if you were let's say, a Mexican restaurant and you knew that Univision has a telenovela at 5 o'clock, well, you're going to put your Mexican restaurant on there promoting maybe your enchiladas and tacos during that specific time block. Funny enough, you can do that same thing on YouTube. You can actually put your YouTube videos on any channel and any video that has allowed for advertisers to put ads on there. So that's super powerful because now you don't even have to have a YouTube presence really at all. You could just go find, for example, I know Gary Vee was mentioned, right? He's already got millions of followers. Let me just go take his YouTube channel and put my videos in front of that audience.
That is rocking. I'm going to tell you something. I live in the state of Georgia. Every YouTube video that I watched in that runoff election had a political campaign ad in the front of every single one. I'm going to tell you what, I almost started to make notes to see if I could get one without the political ad. Well, I tell you what, they spent a ton of money in this state. All right, I know for all of you that are here watching this, we're moving through a lot of things. So if you have a question, be sure to throw those in the chat box because in a few minutes, I'm going to go straight to your questions and we'll bounce those around. But I have one more prepared question I want to have the panel speak to, and that is, what mistakes do people make, do companies make on social media? And really what we want to know is, which one should they avoid? So we all make mistakes, and I think that learning from mistakes is one of the most valuable things. I tell my kids that all the time. I have 3 kids, and I'm constantly saying a mistake is good. You learn from these. So what are those mistakes that we should avoid on social media? Who wants to go first? Laurie, I kind of see you.
I can go if you like. Sure. I think the biggest mistake is posting just to post. Boring content that's not helpful, content that's way too promotional without a balance of being helpful, useful, and what your market engages. So I always like to tell my clients, and what we do for them is that we will go and listen first to what their audiences are engaging with, and then design strategies around that to make sure that people are like excited, like, what Katie, you did with your client on TikTok. It's like, that's what they like to watch. You got to know your market first. So if you don't know your market, that's a huge mistake.
Fantastic. I love it. Katie, we'll go to you next. What mistakes should we avoid?
I think this comparison game. Sometimes we're looking at other people in our market, other people doing what we're doing, and then you get frozen and you don't act, or you don't post because you're looking at these other people and thinking you couldn't possibly do that. Try to have, in this way, we want to look at the competitors, like Laura's saying, but we also want to just be confident in what you have to say and the content that you're putting out there. Because the biggest mistake you can make is like just not trying and just not doing it.
Bravo. Benjamin, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I'm going to kind of piggyback off of both their answers. I think, they both mentioned kind of looking at competitors, and I agree with them. You don't want to kind of get into that toxic comparison of yourself to somebody else's social media channel. Focus on your brand. But what I would say that I think the biggest mistake that people are making right now is that they don't do their homework. They don't actually go and research their competitors. They don't research the marketplace. You should be able to see what's already happening in your industry. I have people telling me all the time, hey, this is a new industry. I don't really think my industry is on social media. Most times than not, I really have not found an industry at this stage that's not on social media. They've already gotten results. Somebody was an early adopter, right? Like 10 years ago, they're the leader in their category. You should be looking at those leaders and seeing how is the audience responding to their most engaging content? What types of strategies are they doing? That should set the game plan for what your strategy is going to be before you just start posting and building fan bases. Like there's already enough information out there to kind of give you some benchmarks. And then I think the other thing that Katie had mentioned that I always say is you got to pay to play. If you're going into social media in 2021 thinking that you can just put out posts and people are going to see it, and that's a failed approach. Laura hit on that, right? Actually, the recent data on Facebook says that if you make an organic post on Facebook, you're only going to reach less than 5% of your total audience. So you do need to pay to play so people actually see your content.
Bravo. All right, so we're going to throw some questions out here. So if you have a question, now's the time to slap it in the chat box. The first question, I am going bottom up, so I'll try to catch some of these questions as I page up. The first question I have here is from Sarah Black. As a nonprofit, what should be the most central component to creating a social media strategy? So what should be the most central component? She asked the second question. What should we build on our social media strategy? What should we build it off of? It can seem like such a blank canvas, which seems intimidating. So as a nonprofit, what should be the most central component to creating a social media strategy? What do you guys think?
Yeah, I'll take this one if that's all right. I've worked with a ton of nonprofits. I know that nonprofits, a huge part of their business model is events and getting donors and sponsorships. So I think for nonprofits, you need to figure out how can you make your events in 2021 virtual? Those are really engaging things. People are doing more virtual stuff. I know some people are burnt out with that, but then also thinking about like donors and sponsorships. Funny enough, a lot of nonprofits, when they were pitching before social media, right, they'd have a really nice presentation deck. They would go to the big corporations and they'd give this kind of extensive presentation. Now, what a lot of big corporations look at for a nonprofit is what you're following. So if you can get some of those vanity metrics, actually that will help support your nonprofit get sponsorship and donors.
Well, that's fantastic. Is there, the next question, there was two questions there. What should we build our social media strategy off of? And you kind of responded to that. Is there any other part to that you would want to add?
Yeah, I mean, I think just layering that on, like you need to have a fan base, but you need to have a content strategy. And then I think we've also briefly mentioned like that one-to-one communication. I think a lot of brands, they just post content out to the masses and they're not really building relationships with their actual fans. So Laura had mentioned that, and I think Katie too, right? Like DMs, direct one-to-one messages, people build relationships on a one-to-one basis. They're not going to go build relationships with 50 people at a time.
That's right. Although Amy Juno's doing a good job on this. She's talking to Melissa, who looks like may get a job out of this. So this is great. I love these chats that are popping up here in the chat box. Okay, I'm going to go back here. There was a question from Michael EFT. You work with an ancillary cannabis company. You probably already know this. For those of you that are not aware, if you're involved in anything that has to do with there's a tobacco selling, most social media sites are going to block you from advertising. you say here, even if it's a paraphernalia, we don't sell cannabis, but related accessory. We do Twitter, Instagram marketing, very broad, not exactly about it. Well, and I can see why. How how can you best do social media marketing in this kind of regulated space? So I'm going to kind of start off here because I'm going to kind of give you some help. Number one is the biggest challenge that you'll have is once you start advertising, someone else that's in that space that's been slapped is going to, they're going to tell on you. They're going to say, well, look over there. I just want you to know Michael is getting away with it, and they're going to shut you down. I would be very careful when it comes to advertising. I would build organic content, and maybe, and what I would do is I try to grow your audience, get them to follow your feed versus selling a product. Do any of you have any experience with tobacco-based products?
I actually do. I'll jump in again here. I have gotten a number of inquiries. It could be because where I'm based in Colorado, if you know anything about Colorado. But what I would say again is try to take things off of social media to email, take them to your website, right? Those are properties that you own where you run into no kind of rules or regulations if you own those properties yourself. So that would be my best advice if you're kind of in that space. To your point, Mark, get a following, be engaging, be relevant, build the fan base. But then if you're going to start talking about those specific products, take them off of social media elsewhere, email, website, those types of things. So direct one-to-one messages, I found a very good solution. Another kind of solution for those things is focus more on lifestyle. A lot of these types of products are appealing to a certain lifestyle of a person. So if you can kind of maybe talk more about what does that lifestyle look of that consumer for that product, that will be helpful. And then final last tip, I would say, if you haven't looked into programmatic advertising, you can actually run some ads on those platforms. You can't run a lot of, to your point, ads in social media, but if you want to look into programmatic advertising, that's another option.
Oh, brilliant. All right, Laura, I've got a question for you further up in the feed, and I think this is great. What are the top three, or what are the top ways of gaining brand recognition on LinkedIn if you don't have a budget for advertising? So we're going to try to build some brand recognition without advertising dollars. How do we do that?
Well, some of the things we talked about earlier, like first going and commenting on other people's posts. Now, don't overtake it. Be polite and don't put anybody down. Don't be opportunistic either, but add to the conversation, right? And let people know you're there. Make sure your profile is optimized, meaning it looks like you are like this really snazzy brand that you are, and it clearly says what you do. And make sure you have the keywords in there, okay? And then post content consistently. And somebody in there, I think, had a question about how do I stay on top of producing content? Well, you can create one really kind of cornerstone piece and then create pieces off of that. So if it's a big webinar presentation or it's a big interview that you've done, you can break that out into 1-minute videos, into short articles on LinkedIn. And then finally, create a personal hashtag, or a brand hashtag, and ask people to follow it. If you go to my LinkedIn, you'll see I have the hashtag Coach Laura, and you can follow it. And I ask people, and I keep growing it. And then eventually it becomes a thing, because when people click on it, then they follow it. And then you get more visibility and more engagement on your posts. And then it goes up in the algorithm and shows up more on the homepage.
Fantastic. I love that. All right. I think we have a couple realtors on the call. Time check. We're doing well. How do you effectively promote yourself as a realtor on your personal Facebook page? And it's interesting. We really haven't talked much about Facebook for no particular reason, folks. Sorry about that, but we'll get into that now. Should every post be real estate related, or is it okay to speak to other things of interest publicly? Katie, I'm going to go to you because we haven't given you a chance to chat in the last couple seconds here. So what do you think about that?
So I have worked with a number of real estate agents in the past, and the relationship between a real estate agent and a buyer or a seller is personal. And when I was buying my first home, I was like with my real estate agent all the time. So I think showing a personal side of you is an effective strategy. The real estate agents that I've seen be effective are showing them in front of one of their listings, talking about it on camera. That's something to consider. just try to be creative in your approach. You could go live from one of your listings and do your own virtual house tour as well. Just something to think about.
So there's a comment, Anne, you another comment from you from Anne Kretzenberg is realtors can do really well on an app called Nextdoor. Speaking of, that is a social media site. That's a very, very good point. All right, we have 1 minute, and I'm just going to read this question, and any of you can jump in and answer. How much ad dollars should I invest on Facebook for a market that has a population of 4 million people? Is there a standard metric to make effective? Example, $100 for every 1,000 people. That's for Max Kao or Sao. So what do you guys think? Is there a metric that you should use if you're approaching a target market of 4 million or whatever number?
It's really hard to say, if a $4 million budget market is a decent market. It could be a little big, but it's like, what is your goal? You got to know what your goal is first, and then go ahead and set your budget to that. Is there a budget? It's really
well. And I think one of the things, Laura, that Facebook's going to tell you. So go into Facebook, build your target audience, and it's going to tell you where does that target market work. And here's the interesting thing about Facebook. They'll tell you, they'll be happy to take your money, but they'll have a graph and they'll get to a point and they'll say, basically at this point, you're not going to get as many leads, but we'll continue to take your money. But beyond this point, you don't want to spend any more dollars. So you look for that point, and Facebook will tell you what that is. You just got to build your target audience. And frankly, that's probably the most difficult thing. Here's a great thing, and difficult as in the first time you do it, it takes a little while, but you can play around with that target audience and build and play around, and it'll tell you, you should spend $400 on this. And do keep in mind that on Facebook, if you advertise there, you're going to end up on Instagram. This is the most fantastic thing in the world. So you can push those advertisements to Instagram. Facebook has a large base. You could end up on other apps on your phone that was somewhat limited last year, but you can still use Facebook to reach other target audiences outside of Facebook. All right, we are officially at 6:56. What I want to do is I want to go around to our panelists one more time and give you guys a chance to just quickly do a highlight. Where do we find you, and what do you offer that we should all know about? And I'm going to go backwards. We're going to start with Laura first. So Laura, you're in my top left.
Thanks. Well,
I heard you're a coach. Let's share some information on how people can find you and what you can offer them.
You can find me at transformtoday.com. There I have a free LinkedIn lead generation kit that you can opt in for sure. Get that with all the questions I saw coming in on LinkedIn. And you can find me on all the social networks, either Coach Laura or Coach Laura R.
Rock on. Thank you so much. All right, Katie.
You can find me on my website, loveyoursocialmedia.com, or my handle, Katie Love Social, across all platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. And tell me how you found me, and I'll look forward to chatting with you.
I love that. All right, Benjamin.
Yeah, you can find me on my website. It's globalsocialmediamarketing.com. I know it's the longest brand name ever, but my email is actually longer. It's benjamin.kepner@globalsocialmediamarketing.com. So if you want to reach out to me, I'd be happy to help any businesses out there looking to use social media. And as I kind of mentioned, YouTube is where I'm really trying to make a focus this year. So feel free to reach out to me for anything YouTube related.
Awesome, Benjamin. And folks, my name is Mark Galvin again. And somebody made a comment about that. That's my logo up over here. And if you're looking at me on a phone, you probably can't see it. My company is ePresence. You can find me at mark@epresence.me, epresence.me, because it's all about you. You can also catch us anywhere on any social media. ePresenceME is our handle everywhere. Love for you to reach out. And I am running a LinkedIn webinar. I need to talk to Laura. So Laura, we got to talk. But I do a LinkedIn webinar twice a month. It's $37.50. In 1 hour, I go over everyone's LinkedIn profile. We only have 10 participants that join us for that. And by the end of it, I give you the 5 tips that'll take your profile from 0 views to 400% views. We increase views by 400% an hour for $37.50. epresence.me is the website. You can find it there. You can sign up. Well, hey, I just got to say, Laura, Benjamin, Katie, this has been a lot of fun. I want to make sure that we stay connected because you guys are brilliant. And I am thrilled that Antoine has brought us together. So Antoine, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mark. I want to thank the panel again for spending the hour with us. This has been an amazing session, and I sincerely thank all of you for sharing your knowledge with us. Feel free to follow everyone on this panel. They told you where you can find them, so let's network and let's network with them all. Follow Networking with Purpose on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram to hear about our upcoming events. Also, we want to hear from you. What topics are you interested in learning more about? If you're interested in learning about how to be an influencer, or you want a session dedicated to real estate investment. I heard a lot of people here with real estate. It's definitely something we're going to be covering this year with a host of other topics. But let us know. Find me on LinkedIn and network with me. I'm looking forward to hearing from everyone. So everyone, be safe, wear your mask, social distance, and also always be learning. All right. See you at the next event. Goodbye, everybody.